Good morning, Muskegon. This is Ian Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley, your host for this community conversation. And I'm here in Muskegon's palatial Clear Channel studios with my friend and engineer, the man who put the O in radio, Oscar Osbo. Oscar, good morning, dude.
Good morning.
You're looking very, very exciting this morning. Got your John Deere.
I'm ready for spring, man. I got my John Deere shirt on.
You already got it on. Looking good. Got the radio outfit on. And hey, helping us out, sort of back again, because you are now just massively experienced from your talk in Muskegon stints. We do have the president. President just isn't enough. The czar, the El Supremo, the Grand Poobah of Baker College.
How do you spell Poobah?
Well, we'll go into spelling lately. But first, we're going to spell Lee Coggin, which is an L-E-E. Good morning, Lee.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. It's good to be able to join you.
And as he says, with a very tight sphincter, sitting here in the hot studio.
He's got you now.
all worried about what crazy things may come tumbling out of my mouth into the microphone. But no, we're going to be easy on everyone. But I do want to kind of mention that, as we've said last week, and we've always been tweaking this show, and we'll continue to try to make it a better show. But when I was a kid, or even as a young adult, middle-aged even in many cases, I didn't get a chance to read every newspaper. I didn't know what was going on, but I always felt pretty good if I was able to get through Newsweek or Time Magazine once a week, read most everything. Then I get a sense that I didn't miss at least the big stories. And one of the things that we're trying to do here with this show, with Eye on Muskegon, and that is that we would like to give you that quick set of brains in an hour and a half of the important things that have happened in. We're going to focus on Muskegon County and Michigan and other areas. But so the big stories, at least, that if you may have missed them, maybe you have a life as opposed to many of us who are internet junkies. Maybe you're working and the rest of it. So we're really where we're trying to go. And in case you hadn't heard this particular one, this is one of my favorite quotes from President Ronald Reagan. Quote, "We don't have $1 trillion debt because we haven't taxed enough. We have $1 trillion debt because we spend too much." And, of course, the term $1 trillion debt is so old-timey. The one, oh my golly, $1 trillion debt was big news. Certainly many of the folks who want to revise the 8 years of President Reagan's presidency say, oh my gosh, what a horrible guy. He increased the debt by some small amount of billions at a time when we had double-digit inflation. Double-digit unemployment. A lot of people forget that in the early 80s, the state of Michigan, we had far worse economy than we have today.
I was in bad shape
in terms of unemployment. And, of course...
the recession of 82 was much deeper.
Much deeper
the recession. We had the Great Recession 08, 09, which is pretty bad, but not as deep as 82.
There we go. So, in any event, the issue here is not that we are not taxing people enough. It's not that people are unfairly profiting from the greed of whatever. The simple fact is the greed of the government that is spending and spending and spending. And one of the things that had just come up with this past week was an interesting insight that I had not been aware of, which is, and this is not Muskegon specifically, but the Obama administration is now proposing guidelines this past week for what they call navigators who will assist people who buy health insurance on what they call virtual marketplaces under President Obama's health care law. Now, think about this. Today, and as I went through and Honey Bunch went through not just this last year, I had to look at purchasing my own health care. And I had to go online and be in contact with, there were literally dozens and dozens of suppliers of health care and any number of different plans. Under President Obama's health care plan, there will be one health care plan. Now, most people are able to go buy their food, even though when you go into it, can you imagine how awful it must be for the average American to go into a Meijer's or a Walmart and see shelf upon shelf of food? My gosh, how could you possibly make up your mind? Well, maybe we need navigators for these shoppers, because really that's far more complicated than buying health insurance from only one company. Obamacare is only going to be one freaking company.
He did say freaking, didn't he?
I said freaking.
Can he say that on the radio, Oscar?
Yeah,
yes.
Freakin's okay, I think.
Yeah, was there a big song, Freak Out?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just so that you know that some of these really good high-paid jobs are coming down the pike to you. These will be government jobs. Most of them will be they'll either be federal government or state government. My understanding is that they're going to be paying in the $30 to $50 per hour range. I wouldn't be at all surprised if, just like the TSA, those folks who keep us safe at the airports, who just spent $50 million on new uniforms. These folks will probably get new uniforms too. And again, if you have the attitude, the mental concept that the money is unlimited, and that doesn't matter how much you spend or how much you borrow, well, then you can come up with these cool ideas. It would seem to me, if you're going to have a navigator, though, for healthcare, which is in theory going to be a lot more streamlined, it's going to be free. Why do we not have navigators for food or for any of the other things that we have to go out and purchase?
Don't give me any ideas.
Have you ever been? Well, come on, you guys have all been. I mean, you're all relatively handy. I know you are, Oscar. Have you ever gone into a hardware store? I mean, come on. Should we not have a navigator for a hardware store?
Well, a few times I've been in there, I could probably have used one.
Really?
I know I could.
I just have fun. I have a good time.
And I like, anyway. So that's coming down the pike. But again, as Mr. Reagan so aptly stated so many years ago, that the spending is an issue. And I bring this on top to something else that is somewhat old news. And the news cycle is such that it goes by so quickly, no matter how wild it has been, we forget it quickly. But the federal government just about a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago, but increased the amount. Now, this is the Federal Reserve is buying United States government bonds. They had been spending around $40 billion every month of buying bonds that the United States federal government couldn't find buyers to buy. They were the highest bidders in the auction. They bought $40 billion. Well, just about a month ago or so, they upped that they upped it by $45 billion a month. So the federal government today, through its little scam called the Federal Reserve, is now buying from itself $85 billion worth of government bonds that no one else will buy, or at least they are the high bidder for, every month. That's $1 trillion.
Yeah, it's an unprecedented historical rate, by the way. It's an unprecedented historical rate. You're seeing the same thing from Japan. You're seeing the same thing from Germany, although the Bank of England hasn't quite taken that move yet.
Many countries in Europe. Well, the Bank of England has not, because they're not part of the euro.
That's right.
But most of the euro states have done that. But anyway, I don't want to belabor the fact that we're broke and we continue to borrow like crazy. But on one hand, we all know that if things are tight, maybe the wife, maybe Honey Bunch will come by, or maybe even some goofy guy, if you view American males from American television, might wake up and say, "Oh, I'm out of money. I'm going to start." Maybe not spending so much. Well, that apparently has not. They don't have that accent in Washington, D.C., nor do they have that wisdom, apparently. Hey, this day in history, though, April 7th, very, very big day. It's World Health Day, which is sponsored by the United Nations. So you can be sure that will have a tremendous effect on certainly the folks in Africa. And I don't know, I would imagine these navigators, who knows, maybe they got a little extra time, a little overtime. We can ship some of them to Africa. But more importantly, far more importantly than World Health Day is today, April 7th, and I imagine every year April 7th is National Beaver Day. So
I thought I missed it. I'm so glad I didn't miss it.
If you are a fan of beavers, this is your day. Or if you're a beaver.
The animal, I'm thinking, right?
What do you do to traditionally observe National Beaver Day? What exactly?
Well, this is this may be a hangover from Leave It to Beaver. It's hard for me to say because they are not specific.
Reruns
so
of
the
Beaver.
Seniors in the audience will understand this.
The seniors
this day, but they
may understand this.
Okay.
Who knows? Well, we'll move on from that exciting point. Hey, a couple things too coming up this week. A lot of people have been offering, I think, very good criticism, but and ideas, because I do attend almost every Muskegon Board of Commissioners meeting, which they typically have on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if I don't make those meetings, a wonderful guy named Larry Hausman also will go in my stead. And he and I do video those, and we do put these meetings on YouTube. We put them on, the best way to click on them is to go to eyeonmuskegon.com. That's EYE on Muskegon.com. But I had a little bit of a rant. I was complaining and saying, hey, no more. I can't make this meetings excuse. So many people say, "Oh, I can't make those meetings. They're at 3:30. Now the meetings are at 4:00 in the afternoon. Oh, I'm too busy." Or I just, if they were in the evening, I'd go. Well, every one of these meetings now, and it has been for well over 2 years, has been on YouTube, on the internet at eyeonmuskegon.com. You can watch them 24/7. There are no excuses to not be involved in at least Muskegon County governance. And the reason this is becoming more and more important is as the states and as the federal government seem to be running into deeper and deeper troubles, those troubles will affect us here in Muskegon. Our county board of commissioners have just finished their first quarter, the first 3 months of this new board. Every single spending vote, with one abstention, oddly enough, every single spending vote has been unanimous. So if you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're liberal, you're conservative, you're fat, you're thin, you're African American, you're an American American, you're white American, you're a half white American, you're a male, you're a female, doesn't matter. If you like kumbaya, if you like group hugs, Muskegon County Board of Commissioners, very much like the North Korean government, is 100% in harmony, blissful, beautiful, wonderful harmony on every single vote that they've made so far this year. So that might make some of us feel good. It kind of makes me feel not quite so good, given that they've promised us that this new jail, this new $40+ million jail, will pay for itself. But the bonds being issued will then bring Muskegon County. Think about this. We have about 170 million people. Muskegon County's total debt, admitted debt, it's actually actuarially a little higher, is about $1/3 billion. That's just the county. That's not any of your cities or anything else. $1/3 billion. So we're going to take a break, come back with more happy stuff for your Sunday morning. But don't forget, it is National Beaver Day.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400. In today's hard times, when everyone is looking for answers or waiting to hear the word, but not able to make it to church, TV38 WMKG would like to help you give the answers and spread the word. For a small price, TV38 will broadcast your church service every Sunday to spread the word to thousands of homes each week. Call 733-4040 now and spread the word of your church tomorrow. 733-4040. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it? You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Okay, this beautiful spring day, we are back at Eye on Muskegon. Got Oscar Oswald, Jim Riley, and Lee Coggin.
Thank you.
I used to think that there was multiple personalities going on
My whole
there.
life they put an S on the end of that.
There we go.
I've just gotten
in this
used to
case,
it.
there is no S.
Thank you.
Sitting next to me. I do want to just extrapolate a tiny bit on these Muskegon County Board of Commissioner meetings. We do video them, and we're going to try to start videoing some of the other cities and perhaps township meetings. But it's critical that you see how the interplay goes. It's one thing to read the agendas. It's another thing to read the minutes. I have been criticized, and I think correctly so, that it would be nice, given that I am someone who attends these meetings, if I could go through and maybe do a synopsis. Writing a synopsis of a meeting is a very tough thing to do. It requires going back and making sure that you're accurate and the rest of it. And I'm probably not going to do that. But I think what's more important is getting the flavor of these meetings. And it happens at cities and townships also. But county commissioners will ask legitimate questions and get absolutely nonsensical answers. And for the life of me, I do not understand why they do not follow up until they get a clear answer. And in some cases, and I'll use this as an example, posted on Ion Muskegon, which would have been this most recent Tuesday. I don't know what day that was, maybe the 2nd of April.
Yeah.
The transport, or it would have been the human resources meeting. Watch that, because the department head, the head of that department, an inordinately well-compensated woman, was asked some specific questions. And from my standpoint, and I've spoken with actually a couple of county commissioners after that meeting, she expressed what I thought was unbridled contempt for the fact that they would be asking her questions. She did not respond in a manner, certainly, that would have allowed her to retain her job had she responded that way to her bosses in the private sector. At any moment, 5 of those county commissioners could have called a meeting and fired her. I can promise you, if that kind of response was given to your 9 bosses in response to a very poorly provided pile of information that was necessary for them to make a quite expensive decision to vote on. And they simply asked simple questions. And you can see, unfortunately, I didn't focus on her because I just didn't expect this kind of response. But that's what they're dealing with. It takes courage to stand tall and force someone like that to show you, I would say, the respect that is due the county commissioners, at least from an employee standpoint. And unfortunately, to my way of viewing it, they did not demand it. But it's very enlightening, I would suggest. It's the Human Resources video on Ion Muskegon of this most recent Tuesday. So anyway.
Thanks. Hey, before we move on to the next thing, I want to make just a point about the debt. And I think probably one of the biggest challenges when you talk about how much we're spending or how much we're taxing, it's hard to wrap your mind around the fact that we spent $3.25 trillion in 2012. I mean, you hear that number, $3.25 trillion, and people's like, it's almost like you have no point of reference. And you're trying to cut $85 billion with a sequester. And I teach a political systems class at the college once a year, and when I try to help my students wrap their mind around that, I say, look, if you were making $100,000 and we were going to cut the same amount from your income that we're going to cut from this $85 billion from $3.25 trillion. And really,
you mean the sequester,
yeah,
the $85 billion, the big painful cuts that they were talking about.
The big painful cuts. Okay. And you say, well, how do I even get my mind around that? $85 billion, if you were doing the same thing for on a $100,000 budget, you would have to cut out about 2.6%, but it's really not even $85 billion because it's spread over several years, so it's really about $22 billion in 1 year. That means we'd have to eliminate $677 if I was making $100,000.
Now, wait a minute. So you're suggesting that an American, someone living here in Muskegon County, is making $100,000 a year.
If they were going to make the same reduction
would be
of $85 billion, it's really $22 billion a year. And if you were spending $3.25 trillion, so you're spending quite a bit.
Bring it down to real numbers.
Exactly. Bring it down to real numbers.
And what would the cut again be?
You'd be talking about $677.
And not only did they say that's down near impossible to do, they would be, if you were here in Muskegon and you were doing that, the first thing that you would cut off would be your electric, right? You would say, well, I'm not going to pay my electric bill. Because that's what they're doing. They're saying we're shutting down airports. We're shutting down the defense of our southern border with the immigration services. Yeah. We're shutting down very important things like bullets to soldiers. Again, I don't think that you would cut off your electric bill or your water bill or what have you. You probably would cut out maybe the vacations, the golf vacations, the ski vacations.
Well, it's even easier than that when you think about the way the government operates, because if you would just look at some of the rates of increase and just reduce those, you could probably absorb that $677. And that's why it's so frustrating. I mean, even at the college, it's very frustrating to be talking to a student who's a veteran, who's been getting some help, and now as a result of the sequestration, he's been told those funds are being cut off, and so colleges are stepping in like us and providing more institutional scholarships. And so it's very frustrating when you realize this probably could be handled in a much different way, and it probably needs to be looked at more carefully. And but when you think about it in those terms, in those real numbers, those real dollar numbers, not quite as daunting a task when you think about it in those terms.
Well, again, and that assumes that there's a real desire on the part of federal government to actually do the logical thing. Forget the right thing. Just do the logical thing. Let me give you an example of one of the things that has come across, in my searching, trying to do the homework for the rest of us. We all heard about Dionne Warwick, Walk On By, one of the great singers of the 60s and 70s, and still many of her songs are still replayed all over the place. Well, she filed for bankruptcy. Okay, she's an idiot. She's very much like the geniuses that we hire to run our government at just about every level. But here's what's interesting. It said the vast majority of her debt, $10.2 million, is tax claims from the IRS in the state of California. Well, how did it get that big? Here's a woman who's been, very publicly known for decades, multiple decades, and she's run up a $10 million tax bill. I mean, don't we have tax agents? Has anybody out here been audited? I was audited 3 years in a row. Interestingly, every year I got money back, but
I made the call too.
They're after the little guys. Well, thank you because I was able to make money. But
press 3 for Jim Riley.
Press. Well, probably after this show, yeah. Well, here we have a situation where you have the ability to generate revenue, badly needed revenue, and of course there doesn't seem to be any badly needed revenue when you're going after public names. Now, I just saw this, and this is not intended to reflect on your business here, but student loan write-offs, according to the federal government's records for the first 2 months of the year, this is just January and February, these are monies that were loaned by the federal government to students. $3 billion. $3 billion of this 85 is awful. They just wrote off with a flick of a pen $3 billion of student loans. Now, geez, if you multiplied that by 6, there's $18 billion. Yeah. $18 billion in a year, if that continues on, that they're just writing off. Again, this is just, it's hard to imagine. The Obama administration, much like Senator Obama, the Representative Congressman Barney Frank, and other Democrats, primarily, although many Republicans joined in with them, but primarily the Democrat Party. But the new Democrat Party, headed by President Obama, is in pushing banks to make home loans to people with weaker credits. In other words, banks who are looking at folks interested in buying homes have their own levels to, their own analysis. The federal government is now stepping in because, of course, we now know the federal government essentially runs the banks because of all the loaning and the power that they have over them today. Here's the quote: officials are encouraging lenders to use more subjective judgment in determining whether to offer a loan and are seeking to make it easier for people who owe more than their properties are worth to refinance today at today's low interest rates, but here's the kicker, among other steps. So they're going to do the same thing. They are encouraging the banks, and encouraging truly is not the operative word. I would think they are pressuring the banks to go do the exact same disaster.
Well, we see something similar. Back to your student loan point,
sure.
Jim, there's a couple of things that are going on there that probably have to be addressed and addressed pretty quickly. And I went through this with I have 3 children in college. I hit the trifecta. I have all 3 of them in college at the same time. And I noticed that when we were doing our applications for the free application for federal financial aid, you have actually a box you can check where you can either pick an amount for your loan, or you can just check the box that says, I want as much as you will give me. In other words, whatever is the maximum amount I'll qualify for.
It's just a box?
It's just a box. You just check the box, and it says, I want the most I can qualify for.
Holy macaroni.
And so you take, and I'll use the average tuition at Baker as an example. So you could have a student coming in, and the average tuition is going to be about $7,000 a year. 4 years, you're going to be about $28,000, and you're going to have a bachelor's degree.
That's tuition.
That's tuition. We don't have any fees, so it's that's pretty.
That's huge.
We have no fees at our college. I mean, there are other colleges colleges have them, but we don't. And plus, and also if you're living on campus, there's a little bit more, and also books are more.
Yeah.
So,
but let's say
$28,000, you've got a bachelor's degree. Okay, so if you check the box and they say, well, we've decided that your education is costing you $28,000, but the federal government, not the colleges, the federal government will then do its check and say, well, you qualify for $90,000 worth of loans.
Instead of the $28,000 that would pay
Exactly.
100% of your tuition.
Now, there is an
Holy
amount. So
moly.
what needs to happen is there needs to be a careful look. And sometimes the colleges are in a very good position to look at this and say, hey, a reasonable amount for you to live on, to help you live as you're getting through college. And so we could do some important things very quickly to bring that amount down. You wouldn't have to write off $3 billion. And the other thing is I think you have to make sure that colleges make sure they earn their tuition before you pay it. They have to actually attend class, and then they qualify for it, and then you award it.
Let's come back on that point. We've got to take a break, but can you remember
Yes.
that point? Because
Yeah.
that's an
Talk
interesting.
about
I
awarding.
didn't realize you could get the money without going to class.
Yes,
we'll be right
talk
back.
about how that happens.
I'm going to get some Java and make room.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400. In today's hard times, when everyone is looking for answers or waiting to hear the word, but not able to make it to church, TV 38 WMKG would like to help you give the answers and spread the word. For a small price, TV 38 will broadcast your church service every Sunday to spread the word to thousands of homes each week. Call 733-4040 now and spread the word of your church tomorrow. 733-4040. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops, or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
And we are back at Ion Muskegon. Oscar Osbo, your cuddly host, Jim Riley. And we've got the expert on the education world here, Lee Coggin. We're not going to belabor this education thing, but Lee, before the break, you had made you alluded to the fact that students can get money from the government without even going to class. Explain that to me.
Well, what will happen is, and they're not supposed to do that, but what will happen is a student will qualify for a Pell Grant or a loan, and then if they a college will award it. And if the college doesn't track attendance very closely, then the student will start to receive the benefits of that, even potentially a refund if there's an amount over and above their tuition costs. And if you don't take attendance and make them earn it, then a college could have to pay it back to the government like a Pell Grant. And so I know what we do, and I think what more and more colleges are doing, is we make them earn their Pell Grant, make them earn their financial aid by taking attendance, and then we award it as they earn it by showing up. And that I think is a very important step, and I think more and more colleges are going to have to look very carefully at that.
Now, I thought that in the past that some professors who had said you have to attend my class, they got in trouble for demanding attendance.
No,
those days are gone.
No, we have. In fact, I know at Baker we have a situation where if a student is not in class for 2 consecutive weeks, they'll most likely be administratively dropped from the class. They won't stay in, and then of course all their financial aid is gone, and that's the way you keep this kind of abuse from happening.
Okay,
so it can be done. It just needs to be done in a more widespread way.
But you also said before the break that in a situation, your exact example was the 4-year tuition to get a college degree from Baker College would cost around $28,000.
About $7,000 a year, and that's before scholarships. That's before any kind of breaks. But let's say
but if you click the little box that says "Give me all the money I can get," they're going to give you close to $90,000.
That's exactly right. You could qualify for a loan well in excess. Wow. Now, some of that is necessary for living expenses, but I think probably what we need to do is take a very careful look. I mean, we talked about what our college days were like. I don't know what yours were like. It was a lot of beans and rice and beans and ramen noodles and driving a clunker car, and there are sacrifices that I think students who know what they're going after, they know why they're getting the degree, they know what their future holds, they're willing to make that sacrifice.
Well, and there's another aspect to this too, folks. Most of college just isn't that hard. Yes, if you're going to take a tough science curriculum, you're going to get into the high-level math. Math and science, they're hard. Okay, but most of these classes are not killer classes, and they are not 40-hour-a-week classes. Many people, historically, work part-time their entire times in college.
Very successfully.
And the concept that you couldn't keep a full-time job or at least a solid part-time job and maybe not graduate 100% on time in 4 years. But
and most career services offices like ours will help current students get jobs. I mean, it's you're right. It's the way we did it. I think it's a positive thing. But you're right. When you have so many people in the federal government's involved, the state's involved, and of course also the Pell Grants and things like that, you've got to take a careful look at making sure that they're going to earn it, and that it's really covering the cost of their education.
Let me explain why, but to put it in maybe, you had a great analogy, and to put it a little different analogy, when my generation graduated, and up until probably certainly 20 years, maybe 10 years ago, most generations of college graduates graduated. One of the first things that they did is, usually within the first 5 years, if they could, they would go out and they would get a big loan. Let's use today's dollars. Maybe they would borrow $100,000, and they would buy a house. So at 25, 27 years old, they would have a huge debt, $100,000, but they'd have a house. Today's college graduates are graduating. They have the $100,000 debt, and they don't have a house.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's so upside down, and there's been many people who have been pushing this concept that it's a great deal for you to have the $100,000 but no house. But it's primarily government, because without the government guarantees of the loans and without the sloppiness that would encourage people that really ought to be borrowing 28 but to borrow almost 4 times that amount of money, there's something wrong there. I'll give another one analogy. If you owned a pizza shop, and you really wanted to make this pizza shop go, the one thing that you would be thinking 24/7, you'd be waking up in the middle of the night, I want to figure out how I can sell more pizzas, because that's how I become successful. That's how I get my second shop and my third shop and ultimately my NFL franchise where I can pay cash for it because I've been so successful. Well, that same mentality, that same I want to succeed, comes in many government folks. But their interest is in, I want to give more Pell Grants. I'm in charge of the Social Security disability. I want to get more people on Social Security disability. I'm involved in the food stamp business, or now the bridge card. I want to make sure that more and more people know the benefits of the bridge cards and the food stamp, the concept, to the point now where we talked about this some weeks ago, where the federal government, the United States government, is actually hiring Mexicans in the state of Mexico, or in the country of Mexico, and buying billboards and other media to educate Mexican citizens about the free benefits that are available to them in the United States. So just like the pizza guy, the government, be it state, federal, and I can assure you at the county level, they do the exact same thing. Where the county right now is looking like crazy to expand the bus system. Now, sometime, if you get a chance, look into a bus, a Muskegon County MATS bus. They're almost always empty, as I saw 2 this morning coming out, or they have 1 or 2 people in them. Now, there's some others, but now they're going to big expansion because the mindset of government bureaucrats is, I want to do more. Whatever it is, if I'm in charge of the buses, I want more buses. I want more bus terminals. They just bought our county, again, $350 million in debt. Just went out and bought, I don't know how many dozens of bus shelters, which are really nice. But we've survived, a couple hundred years without these shelters, without people freezing to death, and now we're going to have bus shelters. And
well, we've got to do a better job of educating folks about the notion of financial literacy and return on investment and how that works. And they wouldn't be as tempted by what is being sold to them. And to make the point, I mean, think about it. When I think about what I paid for my college education, I finished law school in 1990. What I invested in my education has now paid for itself. I'm thinking at this point probably 25 to 35 times over.
Yeah, and you invested money and time, because that time
exactly
is important too, because you could have been working another job and making any number of money.
I made a decision that this is the investment I was going to make.
Okay.
And I've now reached a point in my life where I still have 20 years ahead of me to work, where that's already paid for itself 25, 35 times over. There's nothing I will ever invest in that will give me the return I got on that. But I did not take out a lot of loans over and above the normal cost of what my tuition was, nor did I take out a lot of loans over and above what some very reasonable living expenses would be. So my return on investment is even greater.
Well, plus you invested in a degree that had value.
Yes.
Too many of the degrees that are offered, too many of the degrees that young people and middle-aged people invest their time and money into are valueless, at least in terms of providing income that will be able to be generated to pay off the loans that were initially invested.
It is no different if you and I were about to go buy some Apple stock. Now, if you think about where it's priced right now and where it's been over the past 6 months, there are people out there that are thinking sell, 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 and there are people that are thinking buy, 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 and they're doing it for different reasons because of where they are. They've done their homework. They've done their research. They know this is a good investment for them now.
Or not.
And they've decided to make that investment with a return at some point down the line. That's what they want.
Which is the
I don't
goal.
understand why people can't. We need to be doing that with the notion of education. What the return on investment? What is that going to be? And and I would encourage all parents to ask that question, and students to ask that question. And then all of a sudden, when someone's trying to offer me this, you talk about almost like free money, and it's not free money, and then you say to yourself, wait a minute, that's going to hurt my return on investment.
Well, I agree with you, and I hope this your message gets out. But I would take a different standpoint, or at least an additional standpoint to what you're suggesting, and that is we also need to contact, in our case, Congressman Huizenga, our 2 senators, the Senate candidates who are looking to run to replace Senator Levin, and say, stop doing this. Stop enticing and encouraging people who do not have high-level financial skills. They've shown they're not good managers of money. They don't even have the ability to understand the concept of an investment that at some point would be followed by a return. Stop bringing people into this scam, and it's truly a scam. And the ultimate people, sadly, who are hurt are the folks who waste their time and money. They end up with huge debt. They end up spending how many years not working at something that might ultimately give them a real life. And the taxpayers, as we're finding, $3 billion the first 2 months of the year of defaulted student loans. These are defaulted loans. These are written off right now.
Well, Jim, to give you some encouraging news, I think we're seeing more and more students and parents asking questions like this. What's your employment rate? What's your loan default rate? What's your graduation rate? People are getting more sophisticated, and it's not that they can't grasp it. I think they can. They just need to know that's the question they need to be asking.
Well, you're out there giving the message, and I applaud you. I say get rid of that box that says "Give me every single penny you can get," and I'd be willing to bet you that more than 50%. Who knows? Maybe even 90% of the people who check that box to give me every penny.
When I was helping my kids go through the process, I was stunned that box was there.
I'm stunned.
There's a lot of kids too that will say, "I can't possibly quit school because then I'll have to start paying back that money, and I don't have an education."
That's another facet of the scam. Yeah, let me re-explain that, because to me that's critical. If you are still taking a certain number of credits, then you are not required to start paying back these procedural loans, or these loans that you've taken in the past. And I'm familiar with a gentleman who's in in his late 40s, early 50s, who continues to have his life essentially on hold, taking classes in order to defer paying back these loans that he absolutely has no hope. At his age, he's not going to get the kind of job necessary to pay these loans back.
And I hope that individual...
It's another scam by the federal government.
Well, I hope that gentleman has spent a lot of time talking with... because I know there are a lot of options out there that people need to make sure, just to not to belabor the point, but they need to make sure that I've talked to a lot of people who think their only option is X. I say, no, it's not. You need to get on the phone. You need to get to the people who have the loan and start talking about the situation. Sometimes there are things that can be done. That's
a good point. I don't know about other colleges and universities, but I do know, because Lee's been on the Talking Muskegon show very often. You can sit down. You can talk to somebody who does know the rules, and of course these rules do have a tendency to change quite often,
and they're very complicated sometimes, and that can be very intimidating. And talk with
someone who can help you. I think that's critically important. Hey, I want to get back to how much time have we got coming up here?
About 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I want to go through some things that have happened in this past week. The Chronicles decided that this likelihood of the new Walmart in Whitehall Township is still a critically big issue. They seem to be supporting at least the noise about it. But I found it interesting. We know that Whitehall Township, of course, supports it. We know that the grand and wise leaders of the city of Whitehall have come strong and firm against it. But interestingly, the adjacent city, Montague, the city of Montague, just took a vote, and they were unable to get enough votes to issue the condemnation of the Walmart. So it's interesting how, again, thankfully they did publish the Montague City Council vote. It was deadlock, which means that the resolution would not pass. But have
you been down to Grand Haven and seen the Walmart down there?
I've been in it.
That's about as unique a Walmart as you'll ever be in if you've been down there.
They have things there that they don't have the Sherman one, I can tell you.
That's exactly. Well, and even the design of the building.
People with clothes, you mean? Or?
Well, the belts seem to be affixed a little bit higher on the body down in Grand Haven than the belts.
So no moon rising over there?
There we go. Okay, another headline, again, that you may have missed, but the consensus for the new Muskegon Farmers Market is building. And this was a headline on M Live. But then if you read into it, it says, the reason for their writing of the consensus is an unscientific M Live poll on March 21st on the market plans and relocation shows support for the current proposal. It was a 52.9 to 47.1. Of course, you can vote 8 billion times if you want on either side of it, but they have
Did
an
you not do that, Jim? You didn't do that? You didn't?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. I voted on both ways, like 10 times either side. Oh, I just wanted to give them the numbers necessary.
Very moderate of you.
Well, I wanted to give them the sheer numbers to make this unscientific survey have the gravitas it deserves. Now, this is another headline. I love to read headlines, and of course, I don't get the dead tree version of the newspaper any longer, but I do read M Live voraciously. But I wonder, of course, you've got a law degree, so Lee, maybe you can help us on this. But here's the headline. Muskegon man, 25, faces trial for allegedly shooting man's abdomen.
I don't know what difference that would make, actually, where you shoot somebody.
Is the abdomen perhaps maybe lighter sentence? But they shot his abdomen. Apparently, is the allegedly.
I was a prosecutor for 5 years, and I don't remember where they shot the person as being relevant.
This was quite relevant to the writer of this particular headline. Actually, there's another headline that I don't know if I can find it, but it was about Justin Bieber. Oh, yeah. There's another headline. Justin Bieber's monkey quarantined in Germany.
I hate when that happens. When I'm traveling with my monkey
Justin,
and he gets quarantined,
it's just
monkey
awful. It's quarantined. One would wonder.
My heart goes out to Justin.
How bad does one's monkey have to be?
Whatever happened to Michael Jackson's monkey?
Well, that's a really good point. That's another. We'll probably have to devote an entire show to that one. Hey. There was a song, Mickey's Monkey. Too bad now. If you were really on it, we would have that song going. Hey,
I hope Justin had visiting rights with the monkey while he was quarantined.
One can only assume at this point. I suppose you could Google Justin's monkey.
Because then you have emotional distress on the monkey. Well, it's worse.
Like I say. Like I say. Hey, much ado about something, actually, here. Muskegon Heights, so this is kind of interesting. Things are getting a little tough. Of course, the city has...
and everything. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, the city of Muskegon Heights, or the school district, has, of course, a a new emergency manager, and his name is Dr. Weatherspoon, and apparently he had been making some comments, and I don't know the validity of the comments, but he had expressed some concerns that the failed negotiations between the city of Muskegon Heights and Fruitport and the city of Norton Shores for their water business, in other words, there are only 2 paying customers who left, that could cause problems for the school district. There's any number of intertwined bonds that have been issued that must be paid off down the road. Well, anyway, he made some commentary about this, and apparently he felt that his concerns that were expressed to the city were brushed off. But here's what I found kind of interesting comment from the board president, which would be the school board president, Trinell Scott, and he agreed. He said, the city manager basically said Dr. Weatherspoon didn't really know what he was talking about. To sum it up in a nutshell, to me, I felt like they kind of didn't want to hear what they had to say. So what we have here is a situation in a community truly in financial unsustainability mode, where you do have someone trying to fix it, just like you have in the city of Detroit, trying to fix it, and the folks that love the status quo, the folks that have their actions, their wisdom has resulted in the bankruptcy of the school system and certainly the fundamental bankruptcy of the city. They're unhappy. They're getting headlines too. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. And Eye on Muskegon is back on the air. You know, we did survive the in-depth and I thought quite elevated conversation about Justin Bieber's pet. So we
that was worth getting up for this morning.
That was worth getting up for.
I was curious
for anybody.
about what we were going to talk about. So.
Hey, we're going to go from freaking to fracking, and of course, there's lots and lots and lots of talk of this of fracking in Ravenna, where the folks who are against fracking, and I have yet to really get the drift of the anti-fracking move, because much of what they are against has been proven not to be true. Much like the anti-gun folks, we don't want machine guns around. Well, of course, machine guns have been banned for decades, and a lot of the facts that are in fact not true. But can you imagine if, in fact, that we did have an energy boom in Muskegon County or in West Michigan? Because we know that, we would certainly, I think the average person would be far more interested in living along Lake Michigan than they would be living in North and South Dakota, where the jobs are absolutely just, they're desperate for workers out there.
Yeah, the pros and cons of fracking notwithstanding, there's certainly no question that we're starting to see a lot of manufacturers bring home jobs from places where they fled a few years ago because of energy prices. Because of the price of natural gas right now in this country, you're seeing a mass return of a lot of jobs where it's suddenly
to the country.
Yeah, that suddenly a lot of these manufacturers, they want to be back here in the United States, and if you ask them what's motivating that, it's really being driven by the low energy costs.
Well, it's what I find interesting again is, and of course there've been this past week there's been a meeting up in either Whitehall or Montague talking about fracking and all, but the Chronicle has shown its colors, at least in its reportage, by really focusing and highlighting those who are against the fracking. And honestly, if you go to some of the Facebook posts of some of your friends who are on the liberal side, I mean, this is religion. This is as hardcore as any Southern Baptist or Holy Roller might be. This is down to the core. I've seen people say, I'm moving out of the county if they allow fracking in Ravenna, and they don't seem to have any real basis other than just the concept of fracking. It probably has something to do with the Koch brothers or something. But anyway, that continues to be a big issue. I've been hearing now that for instance, I believe it's L3, but one of the bigger manufacturers, or at least employers, one of the union employers, which I think had close to 300 workers not so many years ago, and had signed some agreements with some of the governments, I'm not sure if it's city or county, but to get some tax abatements in order to increase their employment. They're now down below 100. And there's very large questions as to whether the wonderful union presence there will be able to save those jobs. Again, if Muskegon is going to continue to focus on being against any type of new things, which they do seem to be, other than spending more money in downtown areas. So we've spent, by the way, this is kind of an stunning, and I don't want to, I know you're even part of this, Lisa, you don't even need to be part of this conversation, but just to give you a sense, the downtown part of Muskegon has been, so far has been, what, $130 million has been invested.
Yeah, 11 of that by the college.
And, 11 of that, which is one area, and that seems to be one of the few that seems to be booming. But, again, when the same folks tell you, hey, re-elect me, I'll do the right thing, and then they promise you the free ice cream, well, you might want to make sure that you're going to get the free ice cream, and so far, in many cases, that's not happening. But, Lee, you'd mentioned energy. And here's something I didn't know. This was in a Detroit News article just this past week. The state of Michigan's electric rates are way higher than they are in Ohio and in Illinois, interestingly. And the main reason for that, according to this article, is that in Illinois and Ohio, they have competitive electric rates. And I don't quite understand how you would do that, but apparently it's something that the state would have to vote on and allow these rates to be competitive. But our rates are as high as they are and have not gone down. Actually, in some cases, some of our competitor states, their rates have been essentially flat. But our rates are high because in 2008, there was a reversal of what they called Customer Choice and Competition Program, which had been begun in 2000. So what you have here is Detroit Energy and Consumers Energy, who provide almost all of the electricity for the state, who I would imagine they probably have lobbied for whatever these rates are. But however we got to this, Michigan, the state of Michigan, even though we've lost, certainly our electric demand has to have gone down because of all the manufacturing that's gone. Our rates are artificially high. Of course, they will get artificially higher if we go from this 10% mandated green energy to another. But again, another reason to ask your the state senator, your state representatives, what's going on? Why, if we're interested in bringing in companies, especially energy-intensive companies, when certain states are getting much, much more competitive, why are we not doing that? Because this is in the phase two of these smart meters, which are adding millions upon millions of dollars of cost to the energy-producing companies, which, of course, their profit is based on their total sales. It's an add-on profit, so the more that they spend, the bigger their profit gets. Anyway, if in fact we do care, you've got to give some feedback. But by the way, all of these articles that we're referring to are linked on the Muskegon Pundit, and I usually put them in another form on Ion Muskegon. But you can get, if you're interested in looking at these, just go to MuskegonPundit.com, and you can see these articles. Well, the reason I kind of drifted off into the energy thing was this past week, And you got to believe it because it's been on the internet, right? It's got to be true. But there's a new company called Detroit Electric, and they unveiled their new sports car, all-electric sports car. It's going to be built in Detroit. And here's the just the one phrase that just got me. It says, while announcing the vehicle and company last month, Grunstad said the vehicles will be produced in Metro Detroit, and the production facility is expected to have an annual capacity of 2,500 sports cars and about 180 employees. And you can believe that to be true, can't you? No mention of where the money came from.
It comes equipped with a monkey.
It probably would sell better if it had a free monkey.
You've heard the Eddie Bauer package. This is the Justin Bieber package that you can take with the monkey. So.
The Bieber, is that a monkey in your trunk, or are you happy to see me? Well, who knows? But there's another. So you can be proud again. The 180 jobs coming to Metro Detroit. I love the fact, too, that the companies now are using the term Metro Detroit. They're not going to move into Detroit because it's a hellhole for business. But there's, at least to some, there's this panache that the term Detroit, even though it's symbolic of failure and murder and awfulness, but to some it's I guess maybe because of the Chrysler ads, it's got some positive. So they use the term Metro Detroit, even though it's Bloomfield Hills or something. But anyway, hey, Flint, which there's Larry Flint, and there's Flint, Michigan, and there's the Flint Stones, but Flint, Michigan. Which name isn't
Larry Flint and the Flintstones in the same area.
So you're gonna draw this together for us?
Doesn't, really? Well, it doesn't conjure up images of success and happiness either, in the same way that Detroit does. But here's another reason to maybe make the term Flint a little less warm and huggy when you think about it. How about this? Over a 5-year span, this is in the city of Flint apparently, 1,600 suspicious fires in vacant buildings. Now remember, that's 1,600 fires that were deemed suspicious. Who knows how many were, I expected that. So, but anyway, these are 1,600. But interestingly, only 135 charges were even filed. And as a past prosecutor, you would know that once arson charges are filed, chances of conviction are probably not massively high, certainly in a place like Flint. But if you were wondering why your homeowner's insurance has gone through the roof, this is a reason. Not only is the folks who tell us you don't need guns to protect yourself, your family, or your business, they're not able to protect you from either you burning your house down or your business down or somebody else doing it. But there's nobody really even interested, it seems, or at least effective at reducing the numbers of these very significant crimes. Certainly firemen and others die sometimes in the process of these fires. But more to the point of the average person listening here today, this is why your homeowner's insurance has doubled and tripled over the last 20 years and certainly will continue to go higher and higher and higher. But I just thought, isn't that interesting? Here's Flint.
A lot of cases, though, too, those are crack houses that they burn down, that people burn down in the neighborhood because they don't want them there anymore. So, well,
they could be, and in many cases, I'm sure they're not insured either.
Yeah.
But in many cases, they are.
Well, that's true.
So anyway, but hey, this is a bright one, and you got to love this. We do have a local Michigan State representative, recently elected, Colleen Lamotte, and Brandon Dillon. The name is familiar to me. I think he's a Democrat representative from Grand Rapids, but they did a kind of a listening tour. Hillary Clinton's famous for making the term listening tour real popular, and they decided to do the same thing, and they wanted to find out what people wanted in West Michigan anyway, and they came up with two really cool ideas. I said, we heard these deep concerns over and over at all of our stops. So they decided that the two issues that they're going to make, it seems to me, the cornerstone, I would imagine, of their remaining term, and of course their reelection campaign, is that they're going to repeal the tax on seniors' retirement income, and I'll come back to that in a sec, and then an increase of $320 per student in the state's dollars per student funding. Now, the $320 per student, of course, is just clear. Multiply the number of kids times $320, and repealing the tax on seniors' retirement income. That sounds good. But here's the thing, and this is what I love about politicians: they declined to talk about how the changes would be paid for, saying that information would be made public next week. there's an old story about the two kids in third grade, fourth grade that are running for class president, and little Johnny, he said, I want to run for class president. So his mom and dad get with him, and they give him a, this set of points. Where I'm going to fix the outside yard. We're going to have better teeter-totters and who knows what. And the other little gal goes to her parents, and they come up with their campaign plan. So little Johnny gets up and says, we're going to take the recreation area, we're going to fix it up, we're going to have, better this, better that. It's a well thought out kind of a bureaucratic type plan that his mom and dad helped him present. And the little third graders all clap and said, great. And then little Sally gets up and she says, I'm going to give everybody free ice cream. The place goes berserk. Everybody's clapping and going, needless to say, free ice cream. Yeah, and shockingly, little Sally gets overwhelmingly elected as class president. No questions nor certainly any believable answers as to where the free ice cream is going to come from. And that's what we have here. Again, we're going to cut taxes, and we're going to increase spending. And we thought this through so well. We've really, angst over it. We haven't got a clue as to how we're going to pay for it. And so that's your...
Well, one news item, your item about the 180 new jobs. I just want to make this point, Jim, and see what your thoughts are.
Detroit Electric.
Yeah. The company isn't the big issue for me. It's the fact that the recession, it was hard listening to places shutting down 800 jobs here, 1,000 jobs there, and then you see it coming back with 185 here or 80 here. And that has really, that's marked this recovery, or the recovery that we're trying to limp into. Is that it's going to be just like that. It's going to be a much smaller companies coming back with that 180, those 80s, those 50s, and right now it's harder to. It's because it's taking a long time. But that is the way this recovery has been coming back to Michigan. There's no question about it.
I'm all for this company surviving. It's not going to survive. There's no.
That's a different argument.
Yeah, the fact is that it's got 180 employees. That's the promise. How many times we heard that down in Holland with the big plant that Oscar mentioned, and on and on and on. That's not how you create jobs that have any sustainability. A term that the people who love to take money out of your pocket and say they'll create. And again, I just think the concept of Detroit Electric, what a catchy name. You can imagine all the rich folks out there in Malibu will be buying their Detroit Electric car made in Metro Detroit. Again, if this group was able to raise their own money, that'd be one thing. Yeah. They didn't, and the reason they didn't because they didn't make any mention of it. Hey, but with that happy note in mind. Stockton, California, largest city in the United States of America to declare bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. One of the very few. Actually, we, for a long time here in Muskegon County, with our school system, had stood out in the entire country. If you wonder why companies aren't beating down the doors to come to our county, we have one of the very few school systems in the United States of America that's gone bankrupt. But we don't have Stockton, California, thank God. And this is a big issue here, and I'll tell you why. Because there are two folks that traditionally, or two groups of people that are owed money. One is the bondholders, the people that bought the municipal bonds, and all the various things that Stockton, California had issued, much like the city or the county of Muskegon will be doing shortly with issuing $40 million worth of bonds for their new jail. So those bondholders are going to expect to get paid back. And if they're not getting paid back, much like the island of Crete just recently, they're probably... Cyprus, thank you. They're probably not going to invest more money in the future. But at the same time, the pension people, the folks who have been promised pensions, the employees of the city of Stockton and the retired employees of the city of Stockton are saying, well, wait, we want our money. And unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, but this is going to go to a federal judge. And, we had this story that was made big news, at least in the right-wing hate media last week, about a county supervisor in California who was retiring, getting $400,000 a year in retirement. She was, I think, in her early 60s. That, by the way, the $400,000 was going to go up, but this was cash money, which included, like a $10,000 a year car allowance and all sorts of things in retirement. So what you have is rogue county commissioners, I guess, or city commissioners, city council folks in Stockton, who gave in to the union demands of these massive pension plans, and now they're broke. So the question is, who's going Who's going to pick it up? Are the people, the pensioners have been promised this, going to get hit? Or are the people who loan the money to the city? This is going to go national soon. It's maybe the biggest non-reported story in the country right now. Hey, we'll take a break and we'll talk about really reported stories.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400. In today's hard times, when everyone is looking for answers or waiting to hear the word, but not able to make it to church, TV 38 WMKG would like to help you give the answers and spread the word. For a small price, TV 38 will broadcast your church service every Sunday to spread the word to thousands of homes each week. Call 733-4040 now and spread the word of your church tomorrow. 733-4040. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it? You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
All righty. Hey, we are back at I Am Muskegon. Got Lee Coggin, and we've got Oscar Oswald and Jim Riley here. Hey, we were talking just a little bit about pension stuff here. Here's an interesting one. In the city of Muskegon, or city of Pontiac, they have an emergency manager over there who's looking to reorganize the pension fund there, which has been a disaster. I think I've made mention in the past, Illinois' pension funds. They have a variety of them. But last year, when I believe the Dow, the S&P was up 6% or 8%, we had a pretty good year last year. The top 5 pension funds for public employees in Illinois all were under 1% or actually lost money.
Yeah.
So these are the experts that have been hired to manage the monies for these retirees. But how about this one? This is just a city, and Pontiac is not a rich city, as we know. The $5.5 million in failed investments, a $2,200 a month office space rental. Now, this is for the managers of the pension fund, $2,200 a month, and this is in Pontiac. Okay, real estate isn't real expensive in Pontiac. You can probably buy the Silver Dome for less than that. And trustee travel. The trustees. Now, these are not the people who do the pension fund. These are the trustees that have been elected to look over and have allowed the disaster to be. They get travel budget individually. So sadly, we have these kinds of things going on all the time. And the prime reason is because the people who want the free money show up, they make noise, and they get it. The people who are paying the money, the rest of us, for whatever reason, sit home and do not. And you can sit home. In the case of the county, you can watch all the videos you want on I Am Muskegon. And I do encourage you to take a look at the Human Resources video on Tuesday. But you can watch it. But you can pick up the telephone. You can send an email. And if you don't, someone else who wants that money will do it. And I don't quite get why we are willing to wait until we are Crete. Why we
Cyprus. So you keep picking on the wrong country there.
Cyprus. I'm sorry. Greece.
Greece
I keep
and
thinking
Cyprus.
Greece. It doesn't matter. It's Europe, baby, and it's going under. Think about what the Europeans have done. For years and years, they were very comfortable with about every 10 or 20 years letting the Germans overtake and kill, half the people in their countries. Certainly the French seemed to enjoy that, and the Brits didn't fight too much, and many of the other countries didn't mind it. Now that wars, at least in the traditional sense, seem to be over, they are just as happy, it seems, to allow their leaders who no longer command armies, but they command banks, to allow them to plunder and destroy their countries. And we seem to be, I think, sadly, too interested in following the leadership of those very, very sophisticated Europeans in Crete, Greece, and Cyprus. And there's all sorts of other cool little cities out there. Actually, we visited some of them in October this past year. Hey, I mentioned last week, but I do want to just remind you, again, when people talk about the increases of spending, and it's only going to be the $11 for a person who's got a house worth $40,000 or what have you. But these things all do add up. And this Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association, your rates on your car insurance are going to go up about $11 a year. Now, this is just because of this. We're the only state in the United States that has this unlimited catastrophic claims. But that $11 brings it to about $186 per car insurance policy. So no matter what your policy is, about $186 of that policy is because we have the only kind of unlimited health coverage in the country. That can be fixed by a vote. Hey, Frontier Airlines. My favorite Frontier. I love them.
Leaving Grand Rapids.
We took the $126 round trip from South Bend to Denver.
Yeah.
They're going to be leaving Grand Rapids at the end of the summer, sadly. Again, it shows how tough it is for a place like Muskegon to compete. And, for those of you who've lived you spent your entire life in Muskegon, it's one thing. But if you've lived in any of the larger metropolitan parts of the country, for instance, if you live 10 miles from O'Hare Airport, chances are it's going to take you about 45 minutes to get from your house to the parking at the airport. And then, of course, it'll take significantly more time to get into the airport itself. Right now, it's for most places in Muskegon, it's 45 minutes to an hour. Certainly, even if you go to the northern part of the county, to get to that airport. That's a very convenient airport.
Yes.
Even though it's on the other side. We are hemorrhaging money. We're spending, and it's hard to get the real numbers, but the county is spending between $500,000 and $1 million a year to continue to operate the airport. They have been approached on numerous occasions by private companies to operate the airport. Not only said they'll operate it at a flat rate, in other words, they will not have the $500,000 plus per year losses, but they will in fact have a profit at some point and pay taxes on it. Many airports have been doing that. It could be done here in Muskegon. It is not done. Same thing, by the way, with Brookhaven Medical Center there. Private buyers have come in and said, hey, look, you don't need to hemorrhage. What do we have last year? $4 million. $4 million. 2.5 of it was they tried to keep quiet, and I sued them, and we were able to win on an Open Meetings Act and a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. But this county can fix itself up, but it has to make some attempts. And unfortunately, Frontier is not able to stay in Grand Rapids. Who knows about the subsidy that currently keeps the 2 flights a day that we get into Muskegon Intergalactic Airport. And, just to understand something, too, the county has voted, and this is your money that they're spending. They have voted that any time a county employee has to fly on an airline to go someplace on county business, they must fly out of Muskegon if it's at all feasible. Which, of course, if you do fly a lot, and I do, Muskegon is significantly more expensive in most cases, not always, but in most cases than it is elsewhere. So, in other words, if you're a county employee, you can't look for the best deal. Hey, I work for the county. I want to do the best for the county. You must fly out of the county, the local county intergalactic air house, which is air is actually the operative word, since if you go there, that's about all you'll see most of the time, because there's a lot of air there. There's not many airplanes. Hey, guns, one of my favorite stories here. We all know of, or may have heard of, the wonderful, highly revered poet Maya Angelou. And I don't know if this was written as intended to honor her, mock her, or if in fact this is just the way she said it. But listen to this. I was in my house in North Carolina. It was fall. I heard someone walking on the leaves, and somebody actually turned the knob. So I said, stand 4 feet back because I'm going to shoot now. Boom, boom. The police came by and said, Ms. Angelo, the shots came from inside the house. I said, well, I don't know how that happened. So Maya Angelou, apparently this has been testimony of some sort, did protect herself and her home, perhaps her family, and of course, since she's a writer, her business, from bad guys with a gun. Boom, boom. So for those of you who are want the government to take control of the guns, boom, boom, says Maya. But it's not just our government. The United Nations just passed this. And Mr. Kerry, Secretary of State, John Kerry, the gentleman who dumped his millionaire wife for a billionaire wife, you got to figure that guy's got the moves. Yeah, John Kerry was married to a millionaire.
Well, I knew that. The
Heinz
family.
And he dumped her for a billionaire. So so he's got to be smart. And apparently this United Nations Arms Trade Treaty, which we have signed on to, but will unlikely be ratified.
The Senate would have to
ratify it. It will not be
that.
ratified, but we know that at least the president and his appointed Secretary of State and others do support this. But this is a disarmament bill that's it's like Obamacare. It's you have to pass it before you can read it. It's thousands of pages. But here's one: among the mentally ill, preventing those who are in advancing age from gaining easy access to firearms is a common sense way to save lives, says one of the supporters within this. So that their intent is apparently to keep me, as someone who hopes to continue to advance in age, from gaining easy access.
I'm surprised Jim's not mentioned specifically in the bill. Don't you think they should?
Hence my paranoia. I believe that I am. I believe that I am. Here's another headline. This is again from North Carolina, just this past week. A North Carolina woman fights off
quite a bit.
2 male intruders with a pistol.
Makes you wonder what's going on down in North Carolina, doesn't it?
Well, there's a lot of dead intruders, I think, and then one would hope that, because that frees up space in the prisons, and of course the court dockets get relieved easily when people, as opposed to did you see the Democrat the senator or representative, congresswoman, I think she was in Colorado, but she was making some comment about someone who said, what happens, I live in Denver and how am I going to protect myself? And she said, well, the first thing to do is call the police. And then she laughed and said, this is at a public meeting. She said, oh, but you'll probably be dead. So that's their view. Take your guns away. The cops will be there sometime later in the day, but it won't really matter because you probably will not have made it. But President Obama has been made. This is guns again. President Obama has made some comments of late, and these things have been repeated and repeated and repeated. And clearly, the president. If someone tells a clear lie that he clearly knows is not the truth, then that person is a liar. And sadly, I think we're going to have to call the president a liar in this one. He said, and he says this time and again, nearly 40% of all gun sales don't require a background check under current law. Now, even the Washington Post gave it 2 Pinocchios, just flat out untrue. Number one, it's about 20 years old. And it was a study that the survey sample was 251 people, and there are just so many things wrong with it. And one of the things, for instance, I have received some guns where I didn't go through a background check because my father died, and I got the guns from him. There's any number of reasons to think that this isn't true, but just be aware that many of the leaders, many of the people who are anti-gun, are making up what they say are facts. They're not facts. They are not true. And the president in this instance is lying to the people of the United States, and I think it's shameful. And I would sure like more people like the Washington Post to give the Pinocchios where they are worthy. I see Lee is sitting there in consternation.
I'm still wondering if Muskegon Airport would let Justin Bieber's monkey fly with them.
Well, they won't let him fly with Jim. I can tell you that right now.
Well, I don't have a monkey. I don't
Well,
have, but I do have a gun, and I'm not going to take it with
And
me.
I'm going to suggest you get a background check before you buy your monkeys.
There we go. We need. Well, you know what? We're going to have these navigators, these federal navigators for Obamacare. Maybe we'll have federal navigators for
Jim,
the monkeys.
The voices in your head are not always right. You got to remember that. That's important for you to remember.
Well, the good news is I've got most of this stuff written down, so I'll be able to remember it even if I can't tomorrow. Hey, as I say, the people who want your stuff show up at these meetings, and again, you can see them on eyeonmuskegon.com. But this week, the Muskegon County Ways and Means Committee meets at on Thursday. By the way, the meetings are now 4 o'clock. They used to be 3:30. They are 4 o'clock. On Tuesday is the board. They have a board planning session. And these are where they really get big stuff done. They used to try to do them in secret. They did not publicize them. We found out about them a few years ago. This board planning session will be from 1 o'clock till about 3:30 on the South Campus Training Center, which is the old Baker College complex there. It's room 133 East Apple, or it's 133 East Apple, room 205. That's attend it. We're going to try to get somebody there. I think my friend Larry will be there to record it. But that's where they do get lots and lots of stuff.
Good.
We are still meeting at Carmen's. This week I will not be meeting at Carmen's, but generally we're going to be at Carmen's. And again, since the county is meeting a little bit later, we're going to be from 3 o'clock till about 3:45 at Carmen's on every Tuesday and Thursday when the county has meetings. And we do have our Carmen's group every Thursday morning from 8 till about 9:30 at Carmen's Cafe. You are all invited. It's a good opportunity. Lots of different folks. Senator Hansen was there this week, and Congressman Heisinga's representative here in town, Greg Van Workum, was there this morning. We talk about different things. But again, you can get the full audio of this show. We usually post it in the afternoons on Sunday at eyeonmuskegon.com. Oscar gets the video, which is the same audio, but you can get to see me wave my hands and see Lee crawl under the table on occasion. Yeah. That's posted usually on a Monday. That's right. But that's also at Eye on Muskegon. You can look at all my show prep, and I update this as the week goes on at muskegonpundit.com. And of course, I'm on the Talking Muskegon show, as is Lee. I'm on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Lee, you're on about every other Monday?
Every couple of weeks, you guys have me on.
Yep. So we have you on there. And Oscar, are we still on TV or not? Are we a primetime show?
I occasionally, yeah.
Okay, so we are occasionally on primetime.
Depends on how the situation is over there with. Well,
there have been some discussions and some articles about the TV 38 being for sale, and who knows?
For the last 20 years, but anyway.
But Comcast Channel 397 and TV 38. And next Sunday, we will be back in our quest for truth, justice, and the American way. We're going to have actually the quotable Tracy Lorenz will be the co-host next week.
Excellent.
And of course, stay tuned. Not right after this show, but at noon, Mike Hewitt's Renegade River Show, great show, and Mike always has a good guest. But the Renegade River store is a sporting goods store that also does sell guns and ammo. And he's on kind of the cutting edge of what's going on there. So, folks, you have a great week.
Yeah, have a great
in our
Sunday.
little piece of heaven. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate having you here. And next week we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.